Welcome, I'm Quack.
And I'm Dale.
No, you're supposed to say I'm Co.
But I'm not Co.
No, but it's a Quack and Co. It's a whole thing. One more time.
Quack and Dale?
No, it's not Quack and... Hello, I'm Quack.
And I'm Dale.
This is Dale the Casual Gamer. He's hanging out with me doing a whole series of content over here. If you haven't heard about his channel before, swing over. You do a lot of, Marvel-centered stuff, right?
Yes.
Big fan of this IP, which is why I'm forcing him to tell you about the best and worst elements of Marvel Legendary. We actually just got finished doing 2 gameplays. One base game, where you got me up and running, and then one that was the Messiah Complex, which is a mini little expansion that just came out. And we're going to walk you through from someone who's played 3 times, if I'm going to be generous to myself, and a lot of times, one of your favorite games.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time. Let's go ahead and start talking. What is Marvel Legendary to start with? What's the premise of this game?
It's a very basic deck builder, so everyone's going to start with the same type of deck, and throughout the game you're going to purchase better cards to put in your deck and hopefully get better combos. And your whole goal is to take out a supervillain by defeating them 4 times, and this game can be played cooperatively or competitively if you want bragging rights.
One of the interesting things about Marvel Legendary here is going to be the way that all the decks combine. You're actually not playing as a single soul hero or against a single soul villain. You're playing against a villain with a whole arsenal of other minions that are coming out, that are changing the puzzle of the game, manipulating the scheme, and presenting you with brand new difficulties that both of you are dealing with. Along with that, you're drafting a variety of different hero cards. See, you're a S.H.I.E.L.D. recruiter, meaning that you're doing your best to get Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Thor to show up to the same puzzle and do their best to fight against her, use all their resources. And I might be better at convincing them that they need to get involved in this struggle than you. That's really where the back and forth, the dynamic starts to come into play. This is, like you said, at its heart and soul, a deck builder, where every expansion is iterating on and adding brand new keywords, terms, cards, and things that mix together. When compared to something like Marvel Champions, which is a deck construction game, in this game you're preparing and building your deck throughout the course of play. While you do set the puzzle and the groundwork to start with, it's the game itself that evolves what you're playing with. Marvel Champions, you kind of set up the puzzle before you swing into it, and you're seeing how the puzzle or the solution you've devised works in application. And I reference Marvel Champions not because of the IP alone, but also because we're about to swing into a whole slew of Marvel Champions coverage as well, which will be very fun. Let's talk about the best of Marvel Legendary, in your opinion. You told me one of the reasons we're playing this is because this is one of your favorite games, not solo, but cooperatively.
Right.
And because the pandemic happened, you haven't played it for a couple of years, and you're diving back in now with me. What do you still like about this game? What's the best feature here?
Well, just opening up the core box for you, it reminds me of how much content is there and the quality of the content, getting a hard player board or mat.
Yeah.
And just all the selection of heroes and villains that come into that, because you get a lot of the Avengers just starting out with. So that's a good starter. Rulebook's good. And this for a game that's a decade old. And I just love deck building games. So, I mean, I'm biased, and it's Marvel. So I already have 2 biases, so just know that into this. Other things I like, the fact that we're going to win together or lose together.
Sure.
And then if you're playing competitively, you win together, but someone gets to say, I did better than you.
And you might extend the length of the game in that competitive mode. A competitive mode has to do with how effective and efficient you were with your attacks, with your powers and abilities, how you called your deck and built your deck, which means I might cut you off at the corner, steal one card that you want to buy, or take down a villain that you defeat in order to just claim victory. And if you know anything about teams squabbling with each other leads to maybe a more challenging puzzle. So the game state around the table might infect the game state itself.
And that's a positive for the game there, that you can play it either way. So if you don't want the competition, you don't count the victory points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, we won together, awesome, high five. Or, like some people, we're playing cooperatively, then at the end, let's just see what we got here.
We've had some painful moments together.
Yep.
I won't talk about this. For me, the best thing for me about Marvel Legendary is honestly going to be the fact that it's a deck builder game. I love that mechanic in games. And why do I love that mechanic? It's because I start off with something weak, and throughout the entire course of gameplay, I feel like I've made decisions that escalate my own hand. But I don't have to put in the work beforehand to build something that I think is going to be efficient or effective. It's one of the biggest criticisms I have of Marvel Champions. Mm-hmm. Here in Marvel Legendary, I get to play with our IP that I love, right? In a genre that I love. And I get to take advantage of kind of all the decks that we mix together. I also like, alongside that deck building structure, that so much stuff matches together, right? Our villain has 2 or 3 different modules that mix in. Our heroes could be any number of 5 that we decide to slot in and shuffle. And depending on the puzzle that you're trying to solve, you may choose certain ones, or you may escalate the difficulty because you just want to always have Deadpool involved, which would be a reasonable decision. Let's talk about the worst thing in Marvel Legendary.
Worst thing? The only bad thing I have about this is...
The only bad thing?
Yes, I've only got one.
Okay.
It's teardown. There's so many stacks of cards.
I'll go ahead and get started.
Yes. We've already played a game, so we're putting 5 different hero stacks together, and through the game, they're getting all shuffled up and put together. Got a whole bunch of different villains and other cards. So, yes, this is going to take another 10 to 15 minutes.
Well, and the funny thing is, one of my biggest complaints about the base game is that every card doesn't have unique artwork. And they decided in the expansions to mix in some unique artwork with every different card level, which I love. Don't get me wrong. I would prefer that above everything. But guess what it doesn't help with?
Organizing.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm not able to just look at the artwork. I have to pay attention to which character it is I'm deshuffling, which just makes the problem bigger and greater. But I don't know that there's a good solution for it with the way that it mixes stuff in. But I think it is a decent little warning sign. If you're not good at keeping things organized, you're never going to play this game.
Yeah, but that's all I've got, the teardown.
My biggest complaint would be the clarity in some of the rules. Like, we popped over an expansion here, and we jumped over seasons of expansions to get to it. Like, Messiah Complex here is the latest expansion to come to market. And we're talking, 12 years worth of content? 11 years worth of content over the last decade of play? And yeah, if we'd really fallen in love with this game and played it for that entire season, this would be way easier to understand. But within the context of someone, especially on my channel, who's just being introduced to this content, if you're jumping from base game Legendary up to something like this, I don't think there's a way around searching BGG for a few tactical answers.
Right.
Does the same card count twice? Are you able to utilize the sequence multiple times for the same card? Mm-hmm. What happens if you're cloning a card that no longer has any in the deck? Is it the same matching card, or is it the figure itself that matters?
Yeah, the exact one or the name.
There's a whole conversation here of questions that we came across that, hand that pamphlet over here, that this pamphlet, while good, while accurate, while enough to get us playing, didn't give us enough to really know every single piece of the rules. So that's my biggest complaint. I like the nuance. I like the detail. I like the way the game escalates. I would actually recommend playing not with the core base game, but learning the base game and then quickly escalating to future developments. Because I think they've done a good job at iterating upon the game and giving you a more complex puzzle. That being said, I think there's a bit of catch-up you're going to have to do with the rulebook, and I don't think the rulebook is going to be all the solution for you. I think you're going to need the internet to help a little bit.
Yeah, and they might have a revised copy of the core book out there. If you're...
We're playing off of what we were given.
Yeah, and with that, I definitely agree.
Yeah. So with that, I'll hand you a stack of cards, and till the end of this video, we're going to just start deshuffling the game. So this channel, by the way, is always 10 minutes or less, so you'll see this cut off right at the 10-minute mark, I promise. Not like that other video that I put out. That was 10 minutes and 1 second.
I mean, we can talk about other good things, too.
Yeah, what's going on? What's on our, how are you doing, man?
Well, I was thinking about this game. Other good things about deck builders, new people. It's easy to teach.
It is easy to teach.
Ooh, bystander cards.
Nice.
Those are something to have different art too.
I love when games start giving me different art for the base game, right? Like taking something like my standard cards or my bystander cards or my wound cards, for instance, and mixing that up. I'd love to see a little bit more of that overall.
You know what else is good about this game?
Tell me.
There's got to be thousands of expansions for this.
Thousands?
Okay. Hundreds?
I'll take hundreds.
I don't know.
How much content do you think is out there for it? Because it's been an IP that's been maintained for literally about 11 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all the characters we had in this last set, I didn't know who they were.
That's because they've probably already covered all the characters that you're familiar with. That would be my assumption.
So if you want to play with certain heroes, you should be able to find them.